everyone, and welcome to your session Beyond the Bar Chart. So let me just quickly share with you a slide for some housekeeping items. We will have the recording available for this in 24 hours time. It'll be available to you for the next 15 days. You can also download the slides. And then during the session, put any questions you have in the Q&A section, anything you want to chat about in the chat. I am Samantha from Blackbaud, and it's my pleasure today to introduce Jean and Brian from the Thayer Academy.
Thanks, Samantha.
Thank you.
I'm going to take over the screen share, so I'll see if I can get this up there. All righty, there we go. And thank you guys for hanging in there today and joining us. So glad to see some friends already in the chat area. I am going to also put a link over in the chat here with just a PDF of the slides if you want them. There's nothing you need to really take away from this, but I know sometimes you like to have slides of presentations you've been to and have that information. So feel free to grab those slides if you're so inclined. We are presenting Beyond the Bar Chart, and we're pretty excited to be here. And we're gonna get going. 4:02. I think it's time to start. The dancing has got us ready. So I'm Jean Townsend, and I am the database administrator at Thayer Academy. I'm here with Brian Sabelli, who is our middle school English department head and the director of studies in our middle school. And we work at Thayer Academy, which is an independent 5 through 12 private school just outside of Boston, south of Boston in Braintree, Massachusetts. And what we had planned to do today was have like a networking session. That's what we had talked about putting together for this. And it was going to be in Brain Date, and then they moved it over into the main kind of stream of things. So we were hoping to have some great interaction with you guys today, but I don't think you can come off mute, but we would love you to use the chat, share your thoughts and your questions, and we'll try and address them sort of as we go along. And if you have any great ideas, please share those there too. We'd love to hear about them. One other thing I like to mention is that if you prefer to have closed caption, if you like to read what you're hearing, you can kind of hover over the main stage area in the lower right corner, and a little menu will pop up and you'll see the CC symbol for closed caption. So if you like to see the words, give that a try. I like it and I find it helpful, so I try and share that with other people. Okay, so, all right, what we're going to talk about today. We're going to walk through 2 examples of how we tackled introducing data, presenting data in a way that would made it really consumable and easy for people at our school. I say Brian did all the hard work on this. People to absorb information that they needed. So Brian kept coming back to this question of like, how do we better use what information we already have? And we use Blackbaud's LMS, Learning Management System, which we call My School App. So if we refer to My School App through this presentation, you'll know that's what that means. He kept saying like, the information's all there, but how do we use it? How do we use it better than we have been in the past? So we're going to talk you through 2 examples. One is a major assignments calendar, which is a look at how many major assignments a student has or students have on any given day to make sure they don't have too much going on. And the second example is teacher coverage. So if a teacher needs to be out for part of the day or all of the day, what's our process for figuring out who can cover for them and doing that efficiently? So that's what we're going to work on. And Brian's going to walk you through how he tackled those 2 ideas.
Awesome.
I'm going to pass it over to him.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. And thanks everybody for being here. Yeah, English teacher, kind of approaching much of this from well out of my depth earlier this year, but trying to get a handle on it. But this really started all the way back in, really during COVID. This is my 11th year at Thayer Academy. This idea of trying to get a handle on however many major assignments you're assigning students is, something all schools grapple with. Some schools tackle it by assigning a specific day for a different discipline, like Mondays, English, Tuesdays, history, so on and so forth. forth. But that wasn't something we were interested in. In my time at Thayer, we had always maintained a physical calendar in the faculty room, one for each grade level, and teachers were tasked with going in and writing like their name, the section number, and what the assessment was on any given day. And this was something that, like, during COVID, right, it was a really good instinct where we were trying to make sure we weren't overburdening students. But I think it's safe to say that I was myself not terribly thrilled with it. If only, another thing to ask teachers to do. In order for it to work, you need full compliance, which is, a difficult thing to achieve in that way. And then even, really the thing I kept coming back to is that even if everybody complied and got everything up there, it wouldn't work anyway, right? Even if 2 eighth grade teachers had an assignment on the same day, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's affecting any students, or how, we wouldn't know how many students affect. So that led me to kind of reach out to Matt Clemens, who was our My School app. He was our Blackbaud consultant at the time. He's amazing. His name's right down there, and his group's down on the deck right there. And just asked him if this was something that we could accomplish through My School app. We'd gotten, through COVID, we're doing a much better job of posting our assignments, both short-term and long-term, to My School app. And so, as John was saying, we're already putting the stuff in there. How do we get it out? And the short answer was that no, we couldn't do it necessarily through My School app. They didn't have that function, but he worked on the back end to tag certain assignments as being major, essays, tests, things like that, and then pulled it out and put it into a report in Power BI, which I had never heard of until this point. But that's what it looks like right there on the page. Basically, you could filter it by teacher and section. You can look at any given date, throughout the whole school year, and see how many major assignments a student had on any given day. And obviously, our school, we don't want a student to have any more than 2 on a given day. And so, it's a super powerful tool, amazing. Like, we were super excited about it. Rolled it out to the faculty, and it was working really well. As time went on, in conversations with our faculty, we came to realize that it was maybe a little bit difficult to navigate in that matrix view, just because there is a way to filter by date, but it's not automatically set up to only show future stuff, right? So if September's on there and April, so it's just kind of, you have to move about. Visually, it's difficult to distinguish 1s and 2s and see which students are really overwhelmed or perhaps being overburdened. So, Jean, if you want to move it to the next slide. So kind of thought about, like, how do we, Jean set me up with Power BI just to play around with doing a couple other things here on campus, and kind of thought about, like, how do I take what Matt has? I mean, he did all the hard work of connecting My School app, the Blackbaud product, ultimately up into Power BI. And I just kind of started messing with it. And I kind of started with, I ended up producing 4 tabs on the report as it exists today. First, I started with what's the number 4, the past, which is basically Matt's matrix as it exists. And I just started playing with, as you can see right there, conditional formatting, so that I could highlight when the student had 2 or 3, just trying to bring those out a little bit more. And then that led me into the second one, which is looking ahead. And that was real simple. That's just kind of filtering, getting rid of everything in the past and just focusing on the future. But in conversations with faculty, there was even some grumblings about going back to the physical calendar, which was, like, not palatable for me. But I heard it, in that folks wanted, they were really interested in being able to see that visual, to have that in front of them. So, that was something that, if Jean, you want to move to the next slide, as I was working through those other things, I came across, in Power BI, they don't have a calendar function built into their visuals, but I found there's a bunch of different add-ons, and I found this one by MAQ Software, where basically just taking the data that we're pulling out of My School app and the stuff that we tagged as major assignments, and putting it into this view where you could filter by grade level and see all the different major assignments that a student that they have managed in the recent past and then in the future, in a full calendar view. So, and this is just useful for a teacher in the event, like, as I'm going to assign something, I just want a quick view. This is kind of trying to recreate that physical calendar in the faculty room. And so, kind of created that. You could click on any of those assignments, see which teacher, et cetera. And then the next one, the last one, really got to kind of recognizing that at a school, we have advisors, we have counselors, we have learning center folks, we have administration. They might want to zoom in on a specific student, right? As opposed to, again, returning to the original matrix. And so created this using slicers and everything that I had kind of learned or developed, using a little bit of ChatGPT here and there to work through and building measures in Power BI. But largely just kind of playing around and produce this where you filtering by student. You can see there are major assignments coming up. You have the calendar view, but everything's kind of in one place. So that was kind of the process getting from A to B, and just all the hard work that Matt put into kind of building that connection, and then just me, total newbie, just playing around, working to try and kind of make something more usable for our faculty.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. So Brian and I would kind of run into each other about once a week. I go over to the middle school and he'd be like, I have this idea and why don't we try this? And I did get him set up with Power BI. I'm like, hey, you should try this. He's like, oh, I'm not a data person. I'm like, no, just give it a try. And then he showed me, he's like, hey, look what I did. And I was mind blown. I'm like, how did you learn this? This is amazing. And I'm like, Brian, look what it does. It takes this matrix, which is like, I love a good matrix. I love a good spreadsheet, but this turns it into something that looks like a calendar, which is what the teachers wanted. They wanted to be comfortable looking at something that seemed familiar. It separated out the views, which gave them targeted information retrieval. They didn't have to think about, oh, am I looking for a student or an advisee, or am I thinking about my class? They could just go to the right view for what they were thinking about in the moment. And they didn't have to think about how to filter. In fact, they didn't even realize that they were filtering it, really looking at a filtered view. And then the simplest thing, conditional formatting to provide colors so that the total, when it goes over 2 major assignments, pops up in a bright color. And if it goes to 3, it's an even darker color. So you can very quickly visually see what's going on with major assignments. So when Brian showed me that, I was like, oh wow, what else do you want to work on? So the second example that we have for you is I came over to the middle school one day and Brian said, hey, I've been thinking about teacher coverage, and I was like, okay, well, what are you guys doing right now? And he's like, well, if someone has to be out, basically one of the admins in the office looks at their schedule and they send out an email to all the teachers. And there's like, I don't know, more than 50 teachers in the middle school. And then, somebody replies, and often it's the same people who offer to cover. But there wasn't a good way, really easy way to see who was available during the time that they needed coverage. So, and Carolyn, I see your question there. I'll come back to that in just a second. Great question. We're gonna hit that. So for teacher coverage, we were kind of talking it through, and Brian's like, well, the teacher schedules are set. They don't really change. Once they're set in the summer, they're the same all year. And we were like, okay. So we realized we could pull out a master schedule list report from Blackbaud, or we could even use a class list that would give us all the information we needed. And Brian's like, let me see what I can do in Power BI with this. So he took one of those static reports, we exported it as an Excel sheet, and he put it into Power BI. And he's like, let's see if we can, do something that makes sense. It took a little bit of scrubbing to get it to work the way he wanted to. He had to do a couple of formulas to make it, for example, to show if a teacher was available, yes, or available, no, based on what was in the schedule. But he ended up creating a super simple tool that narrows down who the admins have to contact. And what it looks like is you just select a day along the top. That's actually a filter, but people using it don't even know they're using a filter. They're just, so-and-so is going to be out on a Tuesday. They click Tuesday. It's really simple. And then you select the teacher you're looking for, and their schedule for that day that you've selected populates down below. And then you can select on that as well to pick a specific period, or you can look at the whole day. And over on the right, it gives you a list of teachers who in the system aren't scheduled to do anything. So they don't have any system-based obligations. Now, they may have set up a call with a parent, or they may be meeting with a student or something like that. But, you know who to target to say, hey, the system's telling me that you're not teaching, you're free. Are you actually available to cover this class for so-and-so or that class or the whole day? So this is sort of in beta testing right now. We were kind of playing with it, and Brian was working on it, and we were getting near the end of the school year, and so we talked about it with the admins, and they were like, "Oh, sounds really cool," but we're kind of like staring down the barrel of the end of the school year, and they were like, this isn't really something we can kind of figure out right now. So we're going to try and launch it at the beginning of next school year. And one thing I wanted to say about, I'll go back for a second to the major assignment calendar at Carolyn. In answer to your question, that's a great question. Usually with Power BI, in order to share with a direct share a report that you've built in Power BI, every user needs a license. We did not want to do that because we've got, like I said, over 50 teachers in our middle school. They don't all need Power BI licenses, and we didn't want that added expense. So what we did do, I don't recommend this, but it's available if you want to try it. We made the report published. We made it like a public publish and took that URL and we embedded it into a Google site because we are primarily a Google school. So everybody's in our Google domain, and we put the report into the Google site and then put the link to that Google site onto our resource board in my school app, in our Blackbaud product, as a way of just trying to provide information in a really accessible way, but to also keep control of it as best we could, and to find the balance between giving everybody a license to share stuff or just giving them the information they need. And we've been careful to keep the student information to a minimum in that report so that so there's not PII, that is even potentially available publicly. We would not do that with other types of reports that we might put in Power BI that had more student information or more school information. But for assignments, we felt like it was a good way to go. So, yeah.
And Brian, I saw your question. I'd say that took me about, I don't know, somewhere 1 to 2 weeks, just kind of intermittently working on it. But I honestly can't remember the specifics.
Yeah, Brian's been amazing with this stuff. We'll see each other on Tuesdays, and he'll say, what about this? And then the next Tuesday I come back, he's like, look what I built. Sometimes I see it on Wednesday or Thursday. He's like, I just started playing around with it. So one of the things I started noticing is when Brian would get an idea, he had this great innate sense of the usability of the way teachers needed to consume information. And that was really what got us thinking about presenting here and sharing with you guys, like, what do you need to think about when you're trying to create information that users need to consume? So usability, Brian is a teacher, he's a department head. So he just knows what teachers need, when they need it, where they need it, and what they're looking for. And he had this great sense of like, well, if we just make it look like this and we put it here, it'll be really easy for them. And so the stuff he's producing is easy for them because he's always thinking from that perspective. And he's always keeping that audience in mind because, again, he is a teacher. So he's coming from the audience that's going to consume this information, but also thinking about, like, for the teacher coverage, he's thinking about the admins in the office. He doesn't work in the main office, but he's thinking about their perspective. They're the audience to consume the information for the teacher coverage. Like, what do they need? How are they going to view it? How can they use it? And then the other two things that we've talked about a little bit, but that came out of this was location. Like, how do you make this accessible? And that kind of points to Carolyn's question, like, how do you make it accessible for your teachers? We decided to do it through a URL, put that in a Google site, so that it would be easily accessible, but not directly through Power BI. And then we put the link to that Google site on our resource board because teachers, eat and breathe and live every day in their LMS. They're there for their homework, their classes, all that stuff. So we put it there where they live so they could get to it easily. And then finally, timing. And this was something that popped up when we talked about the teacher coverage. We're like, we think we can release this now. And we're like, oh, wait a minute, the admins in the main office are kind of like out straight right now, thinking about end of year celebrations and 8th grade graduation and all this stuff going on. Let's wait. So if you're thinking about, how your users can consume information, think about where you want to put it, how they access it, when you're going to release it to them, so they're ready to consume it when you first release it. And it's exciting, shiny and new. I love the meme in the chat there. Shiny and new things are exciting when people are ready for them. But if they're feeling overworked and overburdened, shiny and new things feel like a heavy chain, and they don't want to wear that chain. So the last thing we wanted to say is, thanks for coming to this. If you're kind of like I was 3 years ago when I came to my first BB Dev Days, I totally felt like an imposter. I was like, oh, I don't know Power BI. I don't know JSON. I don't know Python. I don't do coding. What am I doing here? And it's okay. You are here because there's something interesting to you, and there's a lot to learn, but you can take it in bite-sized chunks. So find something that you do find interesting. I'm guessing there's a lot of people in this crowd that are big fans of spreadsheets, a lot of data people here. Go find a spreadsheet. I mean, that's what Brian said to me when he was talking about teacher coverage. He's like, I think if I could just get a list of what the teacher schedules are, I don't know how to get that, but if I had one, I could play with it in Power BI. And I'm like, I know how to get that. I know Blackbaud. I can pull that report. So just start playing with something that you're interested in, with something that's familiar. That could be Power BI, that could be Google Looker Studio or Tableau, or even Excel. You can play with the pivot chart in Excel. Start playing with some analytic tool that feels right to you. And take advantage of the resources you have available. In Brian's case, he went to ChatGPT. He was using that. It worked for him. He also Googled stuff like, how do I do this formula? How do I create a measure in Power BI? Because I need a new measure that's a calculation of the data that Matt Clemens beautifully served up for us, but we didn't quite have what we needed. So Brian figured out how to make a measure. You can use, Copilot, any of the AI tools that are out there, but also the BB community, Blackbaud community. So many smart people in the community. And also, you're here. So BB Dev Days, attendees and presenters, you're going to get a lot of names and a lot of email addresses. And I have not yet met a BB Dev Days presenter who has said like, no, you can't contact me. Like, they're always like, yeah, let's get in touch with each other. Let's talk about this. They love what they're doing and they want to talk about it. So you've got lots of good resources available. And then my last piece of advice, take it or leave it, is we all interact with technology all day, every day. Just look around. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. Like, take a look at your phone and your computer. Look at the apps and the tools and the services and the websites that you use a lot, and think about which ones you like and think about the ones you don't like. What are the ones that you like doing right? What is it? Colors? Is it the way they present the information? Why is it easy to use? Why does it feel natural when you're using it? Versus the ones that are clunky. Clunky when you see it and you're like, ugh, what are they doing wrong? What could they do better? Just absorb that information, pay attention, and use that when you need to serve up information for your users to absorb. And with that, I just want to say thanks again for attending. I think Samantha's going to launch that survey for us, and that'll give us a minute to read through any other questions. And we'll keep talking. So Samantha, if you want to go ahead and hit the survey, go ahead, and we'll see what else we can answer here.
Yes, Carolyn, we are on a Monday through Friday schedule, which made it obviously a lot easier. We were on a 6-day rotating not all that long ago. So I did not have to contend with that. That would be another layer, but I'm sure it could be figured out. And how much is the calendar plugin? That one was free. The MAQ, that one, there are some that were paid. I poked through ones that were free that I could plug in right away.
Oh, I just saw a question, a comment from Sandra. Yes, super useful for room availability. I sat in a session earlier today with Nick Marchese and Todd from St. Albans School. I saved the notes. and they've done something using Google Sheets for room availability that looked fantastic. And I was like, ooh, that's another project I want to tackle. Knowing which rooms are available when in an easy way. Yeah, that's a good one. Let's see. Playing around is definitely a good way to learn. One point on that, I was so funny when Brian's just started playing with Power BI. I had attended like the starter sessions for Power BI, and I had read a bunch of resources on how to use it. And I'm kind of like, start at the beginning and work your way through very methodically. Database administrator. And I would come and talk to Brian once a week. He'd be like, oh, I figured out how to do this, and I figured out how to do that. And I'm like, how did you learn that? And he's like, I don't know. I just Googled it. ChatGPT told me that. Or, he was learning so quickly, and he was learning the way our students learn, just sort of natively getting in there, playing with it, and not being afraid. And I've always been a little afraid of things I didn't fully understand. So we realized we made a really good team, because I would like go through and methodically figure something out, and Brian would be like, hey, I did this. And he would get these amazing results. And it works well together. We've been able to do some fun stuff. I mean, he's really done all the hard work. I just kind of encourage him and say, oh, do you need Power BI? Here, I'll make sure you have it. I know that, I work in the tech department. I can get you that.
So not true, but whatever. Yeah.
So let's see, teacher coverage. Yep. I think we have answered all the questions in the chat there. If anybody has anything, feel free to put that in there. And if not, you guys can take off. You've hung in there. If you're on the East Coast time, you've hung in there all day. We appreciate you spending some time with us at the end of the day. And so glad you're here. And our email addresses are there. Reach out if you have questions. We're happy to connect and answer your questions.
Thank you all.
Q&A section. Okay, let me go check there.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Okay, by URL, do you mean the URL that you get after the Power BI report is published? Yes. When you publish a report, you can share it or you can publish it, and that's exactly what we're talking about. That URL, which is a public URL. And if you're serving up something in your Power BI report that has a lot of student information or sensitive information, you definitely would not want to put that out on a public URL. But we pulled that URL and put it into a Google, embedded it into a Google site the same way in that publish area of the Power BI report. Is that right, Brian? You go into the publish area and then you can get the embed code.
Yeah, we built the window so that it would cut off any sharing capability within it too, right? So they couldn't possibly share. They can't get at the URL for the Power BI.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. Yes, I will be at BBCon again. I might convince Brian to come with me. We'll see. All right. I think we're good. All right. Have a great day, guys.
Awesome. Thank you.